never met. We've spoken to a couple of different whole Washington people. We've been following this for a long time now. I wish that you and New York and California really took this contest to heart. And like, I look at it like it's a good race right now. Like, and so we're hedging our bets and supporting all. But yeah, so welcome. That's what we're going to obviously talk about healthcare. So Peter.
So obviously there's a lot of people who are sort of down in the dumps right now. It obviously wasn't enough of a body blow for what happened in California. Now, of course, the world is going to be distracted with what's going on in Ukraine. But we cannot forget that we are the only developed nation on earth that does not have healthcare as a guaranteed right. It is absolutely absurd at this point, considering how much we spend on it and how much a universal system would actually save us just from the bureaucracy alone. So if you could tell us what the status is right now. Obviously, I know that for the past couple of years, you guys have been attempting to get the attention of, Representative Pramila Jayapal, for example. It doesn't seem like the federally elected representatives in Washington have any interest in paying any mind to this. So if that's the case, you can't just sit on your hands, and you guys are planning to do it appears, the next best thing, which is let's get a ballot initiative going, and then there's really no way that they can ignore us. So tell us about, what the status is as far as that goes, as well as the status of the organization.
Yeah, there's a lot there to work with. The first thing on, the distraction from, what's going on in Ukraine. I always, remind people that, finding out what you're against is kind of the first step. And we are against imperialism in all forms and for all sorts of reasons. But I think where kind of activism comes into its own is when you figure out what it is that you're for. And so that's why it's really important that we're not just always showing up for the things that we're against, but we're presenting the alternative. Instead of doing this, we could be investing our resources into providing everybody healthcare. So I think that's super important. And then you mentioned New York and California, and I wanted to say that it is a race that we're happy to be in. I would love to see any of these states become the first one to implement some sort of universal public healthcare system in the United States. But it's also something that I think is time for us to start discussing in a more collaborative way than just a friendly race. There is an incredible amount of support that these campaigns can give one another. And there are actually things that you can achieve when you work across state lines that you can't do if you just work within your own state. And I'm actually really excited to say that, I'm in the early days of forming a group, but we've been meeting since October and really working together on this. And it's grown a lot, especially since the CalCare, what happened with CalCare, because we threw together like an emergency solidarity meeting for CalCare. And over 80 activists from all over the country joined, and we've been working under the name Medicare for All Everywhere. And you can look that up on Twitter. But we are explicitly working towards building formal coalition between the statewide campaigns and the organizations that are pushing them. And we really think that is something that we haven't seen yet, and something that will move this forward. We are all down in the dumps about CalCare, but the thing that I have to remind people so often is that if you're not prepared for some setbacks and some losses, the fight to defeat Big Pharma and to implement free universal healthcare in the United States, it might be a tough one to be in, because what we are fundamentally proposing is that we are going to win where we've only seen, many, many attempts and nobody has succeeded at this before. And we have to be grateful for everyone who got us this far. And, the people who taught me about how our healthcare system works and how it could be better, right? That's all work that came before. And we have to just keep building on the efforts and the many noble efforts that have come before us. So that's all a lot of context. When it comes to where we are in Washington, I also always remind people that we do not exclusively focus on the ballot initiative. We always try to pass this through the legislature. There's also a Universal Healthcare Commission in Washington. And even though they're on a timeline that puts them, at a kind of slower rate than what we're talking about, we also hope that, they move us towards a single payer healthcare system in Washington. So where that commission is concerned, we always want to remind everyone involved, single payer is where we want this to go. That is, we already know that this is the right answer. When it comes to the ballot initiative, we are on track to file in mid-March, which is when that is due. It usually takes about a month to finalize the language that goes on the petition, to get a number. So we've put our launch date for about 1 month after filing. So for now, it's April 15th. So, we've got some stuff to do before that. First of all, any potential changes that we might want to make to the legislation, we have an opportunity now to talk to our community and policy experts and make any improvements to the bill that anyone can think of. And then we need to raise money in order to have the resources just to print those petitions and supply the bins and supply our volunteers. And that's a unexpectedly high expense because not everyone knows this, but in Washington state, you actually have to include the entire text of the bill on every sheet that anyone signs. And it's a kind of ridiculous requirement. Nobody can read it. The text is tiny. We're just checking off a box. But what it means is, we have to raise a lot of money for, professional printing on giant sheets and many pages. So that's one of the main things that we are working on between now and when we launch in April. And then other than that, it's really just recruitment, exposure, which is why we're so happy to have the invitation to speak here today. But, a lot of this infrastructure, we want to be as prepared as we can be, but we also recognize that once we actually start gathering signatures is really when, all of the wheels of the organization start to turn kind of together towards a common goal. And so that's what's going to really help us, not just be prepared, but then to continue to grow and build off of the infrastructure that we lay down, and really, really get out there in front of the public. Because everyone who signs your petition is a potential volunteer. And so we really think that that's when, we're going to see a lot more growth.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.